Okay, with my dad again, and he just wanted to talk this time about some of his memories from the Army.
My commanding officer was named Donald F. Craig. He was a middle-aged guy, handsome guy, had a mustache. In fact, he looked like a cartoon character at the time called Captain Jack. But anyhow, when I first met him, he told me there are three things you need to succeed. Number one, you and your wife need to play bridge. Number two, you need to golf at the officers club. And number three, you need to drink scotch. He was a scotch drinker.
Well, how many of those three did you do?
I did all three, but the one that was most painful was the golf. At Fort Bragg, it was easy to golf there because there weren't many trees, but to give you an idea how crazy life is. It would be so hot some days that we would get a call from post headquarters saying, cease all training. So we would cease training, and what would the officers do? We'd go play golf in the heat. And I hated it. Didn't like it.
What kind of scotch did he drink? Do you remember?
He drank, I forgot the name, but I started drinking scotch then. Anyhow, he loved me. I did a lot of things extra, and he appreciated it. One of the things I did, with the help of my dear wife Jacqueline, we redid the cafeteria. We had those old World War I barracks, wooden barracks, bleak cafeteria, and Jackie came in. She put tablecloths on the tables. She did two beautiful mosaics, one of the 15th Field Hospital, another of 18 Airborne Corps. I wish I knew where they were today. But anyhow, she redid the dining room. Also, what was common at the time, you needed materials to build things. And so I was able to get plywood from the Air Force. Now, you didn't pay in money, you paid in objects. And we were a field hospital. And every time we went to the field, we were allowed to declare X number of blankets, and we would get new blankets. The Army blankets were much in demand, especially by the Air Force. So I traded Army blankets for plywood to redo the dining room. And Jackie was instrumental in that too. Well, Major Craig dearly appreciated that. He appreciated it so much that he tried to get me promoted to first lieutenant after a year. He put in for it, and they told him no. If he's doing well, he'll be first lieutenant in 18 months. But he tried to get me promoted earlier. And he did put me in for the Army Commendation Medal, which I got when I left. Anyhow, he was a good guy, and he had one desire in life. He wanted to be a paratrooper. And they told him that he couldn't because he had false teeth. And they said, hey, when you hit the ground, instead of worrying about the enemy, you're going to be looking for your teeth. So they wouldn't let him go airborne as a young man. So as a middle-aged World War II veteran, he went airborne.
Huh.
And it was something to see this relatively older person running with the young kids in preparation for big. But guess what? He didn't go airborne in World War II. They put him in a, what do you call the craft that's towed? I forgot what they call it. It's like a kite. It's towed by another plane, and you crash landed it. He went into that. I guess they weren't worried about teeth then. Major Craig was an important man who loved me, and I loved him. The next important guy is Sergeant Major. Oh, my mind's gone today. Sergeant Major. He was an E9. I'll remember his name shortly. He too was a World War II veteran. He was a forward observer during the war, and that is a very dangerous position. You went beyond your lines and got as close to the enemy lines as possible. And it was a two-man team, a non-commissioned officer and an officer. And they would call in artillery on the enemy. It was a dangerous job, and apparently he lost 6 officers were killed different times, but he was not killed, obviously. I remember him because he was an inveterate gambler. Every payday was gambling day in the Army. We were paid in cash, and he would go and have these high stakes poker, and he was apparently very good at it. The other sergeant was my first sergeant. His name was Loren Fritz. Sergeant Fritz was from Eastern PA, a good guy. He wasn't a World War II vet. He was younger than that. But he was a good first sergeant, and I will always remember him. Whenever he wanted an afternoon off, he would come in, salute me, and said, "Sir, permission to take the afternoon off. My wife's going to get pregnant and I'd like to be there." So that was his excuse. He used that a lot. But he was a good guy. Another guy important in my unit and important in my maturing was named Napoleon Bowen. Can you imagine that? He was a black dude, but he was a really good guy. He was one of my hospital unit sergeants. And I remember him mostly because he was a fanatic bowler. He loved bowling. Bowling was his life. I think he used to bowl every night. Well, what happened at Bragg, the bowling alley burned down. In Fayetteville at the time, segregation was in real strong.
Yeah.
Black persons were not allowed to bowl. They were whites only in the bowling alley. So he had to go to Raleigh to bowl when he wanted, and that was an hour and a half drive away. I always felt sorry for him. That was his obsession, and he couldn't do it anymore because he was black. Speaking of that, two other things involving North Carolina. I mentioned before there was a laundry right on the border of Fayetteville to Bragg. It was on Fayetteville property. And it had a neon sign. Imagine this, a neon sign that said whites only. Well, you know, we thought, God, they put that in neon. One day we were with friends from New York, a young lieutenant and his wife, and she said, "That's the dumbest laundry I ever heard of. It only allows you to do white clothing." I said, "No, Tina, that's not what it means." And she couldn't believe it, being from New York, that they would have a neon sign for white people only. The prejudice and the segregation in the South shaped my political outlook. I was always a Republican. I believed that Russia was the enemy and our allies were our friends, etc. So I became a political conservative. But my experience at Fort Bragg taught me to be a social liberal. The experience of Sergeant Bowen troubled me a lot. There was a commanding officer in the unit next door named Raymond Gaffney. He was a major. He was a black man. And in fact, Jackie and I had him to our house for dinner. It's the only time I had a black man in my house for dinner. But he was a lovely person. He had a wife and children, and they were in the deep South, I don't know, Alabama, Mississippi. His wife would not come with him to Bragg because of the social pressures. She was comfortable with her children in a black community in the deep South. That troubled me a lot. Those experiences, seeing the injustice, caused me to be a social liberal.
And that was right around the time of Brown versus Board.
Yes, it was.
So.
It was, yeah. Anyhow.
Do you want to talk about Mark Hoke, or?
Yeah, I could talk about Mark Hoke. Mark Hoke greatly influenced my life also. His father was a cement contractor like mine. He was a cement contractor in Frederick, Maryland. Anyhow, Mark and I became very good friends. I succeeded Mark as the company commander. And while we waited, Mark and I and Jackie and his wife, and Jackie and Mark's wife, became very close friends. We did a lot of things together. We were at each other's home often. And in fact, the one trip after Mark left, we stopped in Frederick with baby Karen and stayed at the Hoke place. Mark was a terrific guy. He was a Catholic. We went to the same church together, which, by the way, was considered a mission. There were so few Catholics in North Carolina. Anyhow, Mark was a great guy, but Mark was a racist from the word go. He didn't like black people. He let everyone know it. In fact, Mark's experience with that prejudice caused him, when he was in Vietnam, they would pick him up at his place where he slept and take him to the field hospital, and he would go in a Jeep, but he was on his lap, he had a submachine gun, and it was not against the Viet Cong, it was against fragging that was going on, where you were always endangered. And I guess there were enough threats made by black people against Mark, who didn't hide his prejudice. Mark is the reason why I probably didn't go regular Army. I applied to regular Army. I was given permission to go to regular Army, which meant I wouldn't be in a temporary position, but I would be permanent Army. And I loved the Army, and my wife, I think, loved it more than me. Jackie loved the Army. It got her away from her mother. It gave her a new sense of being, and she was very happy. She would have been happy if I would have stayed in the Army. I decided not to at the end because I got a contract from Dr. Linton Penhills in the mail, and there was a bird in hand. I had a job as a history teacher if I wanted it, and history teachers back then were a dime a dozen. I thought, what'll I do? Well, what helped make my decision was Mark Hoke, who he and his wife Jan were hoping to have a child. And she finally got pregnant after 4 or 5 years of marriage. Mark got to see his son born, and a few days later was shipped to Korea for 13 months, which means he'd be away from his newborn son and his wife for 13 months. And I thought, nah, I don't need that. So that caused me to make my decision. But all of these people were influential in my life. And I'm happy for the Army experience, as well as my University of Pittsburgh experience. Pitt gave me 2 important things. Number 1, I met the love of my life my freshman year in an elevator on the ground floor in the Cathedral Learning, going up to biology class. I was introduced to this redhead named Jacqueline Narduli, and that was the start of a long period of love and happiness. So the Army was important, and Pitt was important. It gave me a career, and it gave me the love of my life. I'm a lucky guy. That's all for now. I'm tired of talking.
All right. Hey, real quick, who was the commander, or I think he was enlisted, that was missing part of the year? Is that one of the guys you talked about?
Oh, that's Sergeant McCullough. Now I remember his name.
Okay.
Sergeant McCullough was an E9. Remember I said he was a forward observer.
Mm-hmm.
He escaped World War II, and while he had 6 lieutenants who were killed, one day at Fort Bragg, we had a parade, and everyone had to wear their medals. So naturally, he had a chest full. Oscar McCullough was his name. I said, "Hey, Mac, where's your Purple Heart?" He looked at me, he says, "I don't have a purple." Oh, he said, "You mean my ear?" He says, "I got that in a bar fight in Tijuana." No Purple Heart for that.
Yeah.
But he was a great guy.
Very good, very good. When did you get commissioned to be a first lieutenant? After 18 months then?
Yeah, that was automatic. After 18 months, you had to wait 18 months. And if everything was good, you got to be first lieutenant.
And then the captain came when you were in the reserves?
That came when I was in the reserve, right?
Okay. Very cool, very cool. All right, you're done for today?
I'm done for today.
All right.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, Pete.
Sure.